Yeah, I took a look a little bit at the pieces on defense. I felt like there were some pieces in place. In particular, I think there's some things that we have to have in the secondary that I like. I think there's some pieces at linebacker that I'm encouraged by. I think there's a couple of spots up front that I feel like we've got some players. So I think the foundation is there defensively, and I think, look, when Ben asked me if I would be interested, there was a couple of places that I felt like had the pieces in place to potentially be a really good football team. And Chicago was obviously one of them. And so I was excited when it came about that this was the job that he really wanted, and this was the job that he was able to get. And I was excited when he wanted me to come along with him.
Where were you for the last 6 or 8 weeks of the season? Did you go to home base? Did you go on vacation? What did you do to kind of reset yourself?
Well, home base was still in New Orleans, but I spent a lot of time with my family. We did, we took a couple of vacations. I got away from football a little bit. I'm not going to forget football in a couple of months. It's going to be there when I get back. So I just really wanted to take the time to do some things that you don't really get an opportunity to do a lot in our profession, and hanging out with family on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and taking a couple of vacations. So I did that. And once the first of the year rolled around, I started, getting my juices flowing a little bit and getting ready to get back going to work.
We'll go next to Adam Johns in The Athletic. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Dennis. I was curious what you make of Ben Johnson's offense just from facing it a couple of years ago. And then the second part of that question, what did Dan himself tell you about Ben in terms of what he likes to do and who he is?
Yeah, look, I think just facing the offense, the creativity in the offense, the way that he's able to utilize all of his assets and get him in the best position to have success. I was always really intrigued with how he was able to do that. And look, in terms of the guy, I mean, I knew that he was going to be a grinder, a hard worker, tireless, and I knew that he had a clear vision of what he wanted this team to look like, and I think that aligns with, kind of what I think we should be, and how I think this team should be, and in particular how I want this defense to be.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Mark Grody from The Score.
Thank you. Hey, Dennis. I'm just curious about, you mentioned that you feel like there's a lot of pieces in place on the defense, and I'm kind of zeroing in on the defensive line. Does that mean that you think that the players are there and they just need that you can develop them, or do you think that there are personnel that needs to still be brought in to make that defensive line more effective?
Yeah, look, I think we're always looking for talent acquisition, player acquisition, guys that we feel like can come in and fit into our system, that can help us grow as a defensive line. But what our job is as coaches, our job is to develop, and so we're going to take the pieces that we have in place. We're going to add the necessary ingredients that we need to create what we need to be able to do from a defensive standpoint. So I'm excited about working with the guys that we have, and I'm looking forward to working with Ryan and his staff to see if we can't find some pieces to add to it.
And then one other question too. You mentioned that you got away from football for a little while, which I'm sure is not uncommon for coaches, but I'm just curious about your aspirations, having been a head coach a couple of times. Are you now at the point in your career where you're comfortable being a coordinator and being a guy that helps out a head coach, or do you still have, natural ambition for yourself to be a head coach again?
Well, look, I've always felt this way, be where my feet are. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to come here, the opportunity that Ben and the organization have given me to come here and be a part of this. And I'm going to do, my job is to do everything I possibly can to help these players play to the best of their ability and to help our head coach, Ben Johnson, be successful. And that's my sole focus and my sole purpose for being here.
We'll go next to Adam Hogue of CHGO. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Dennis. The secondary that the Bears have here, a lot of good, talented young players. I'm just curious when you watch the film of them, kind of how they fit ideally how you want your secondary guys to play.
Yeah, look, I think when I came in here and I looked at the board and I really saw who we had, and you get a chance to see what the measurables are. Like, I think there's a lot of things that I like. We've got some size and length at the corner position. I like the fact that they have some man coverage ability. I think we've got some versatility at the safety position, and so I see the fit. I think Kyler Gordon, I think, is an outstanding nickel player. So I have a vision for how we can utilize him, and so I think the foundation for what we want to do is there. And then I'm just excited about finally getting these guys in here and us having an opportunity to work with them and seeing exactly what we have. And then we've got to be creative on how we want to use them.
We'll go next to Courtney Cronin from ESPN. Go ahead, Courtney.
Hey, Dennis, how are you? Question just on overall philosophy of pressuring the quarterback, because I know it's something that evolved over the last couple of years in this defense, but the bottom line at the end of the day was that they didn't get enough pressure in sending four. How do you approach that as a play caller in utilizing different, formations, obviously blitzing more heavily? Is that something you expect to be different from what you've seen in, I guess, your scouting of the Bears defense the last couple of years?
Well, look, I think that all remains to be seen. We'll get all the guys in here and we'll figure out what we need to do. But I think, Ben in his press conference made a great point that this has become a quarterback-driven league. I mean, that's what this league is. And so I think everything that we do is going to be based on how do we affect the quarterback. And you affect the quarterback through rush and coverage. And that's the pinnacle of what team defense is all about. And so we can be as great as we want to be covering everybody, but if we can't rush the passer, it's not gonna matter, and vice versa. If we can get to the passer quickly, but we can't disrupt routes and be competitive on the line of scrimmage, then we're going to give up completions. So I think those two things have to be able to work together.
We'll go next to Scott Bear from Marquee.
Dennis, how's it going? Welcome to the Bears, of course.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and just like, what are next steps? For you, I know that there are a few position coach availabilities open. Are you going to have some influence on that? And what else comes next before the players come in the building in April?
Well, look, it's a long process. I mean, I think right now the focus is, and Ben and I have been working together on, trying to put together the staff, finalize the staff, get those guys in place. Then we've got to do a deep dive into the personnel that we have. And then we've got to be able to give some direction and some clarity to Ryan and his guys in terms of what exactly are we looking for in each position. And then we'll get into, the scheme and making sure that everybody's on board with what we're going to do from a schematic standpoint.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Chris Emma from 670 The Score. Go ahead, Chris.
Chris, you look like you're working that technology about like I do.
We'll come back to you, Chris. Just a second. We'll go to Matt Zahn from CBS.
Hey, Dennis, can you hear me?
I got you.
Well, obviously, about making the transition from a coordinator to head coach. This will be Ben Johnson doing this for the first time. What can you share with him, some of the challenges about that? And do you see that as part of your role here as sort of helping him as a first-time head coach?
Well, look, I'd say this. I'd say my job is to use all the experience that I have to help him be as successful as he can be. And so I don't look at it as my job is to go in there and tell him what I think he needs to do. My job is to be a sounding board for him. If he's got questions, if he's got things that he wants to run by me, I'll be glad to give him my opinion. But in my experience with him, I'm excited about this opportunity for him. He's fully prepared and fully capable of doing an outstanding job. And whatever he needs me to do, I'll be here to try to help him in any way I can.
New Bears defensive coordinator Dennis Allen meeting the media here on ESPN Chicago.
Hi, Dennis. Welcome to Chicago. I know we're talking defense. I wanted to ask you, though, about your experience with Declan Doyle in New Orleans and what sort of stood out about him as a young coach trying to make it in the NFL. Yeah,
I think that the number one thing that stands out, the moment you meet him, the moment you talk to him, you sense a highly, highly intelligent person, a guy that's been around the game, a guy that understands the game. He understands the game from a multitude of different perspectives. I just think he's a really good, bright young coach that has a really good future in front of him.
Last one, we'll go to Chris Emma.
Let's see, is it working now?
Yeah, we got you, Chris.
I promise I'm louder in person. I'm glad we're working this time. Of course, the two questions I had in mind were just asked. I'm going to follow up a little bit. When you were a first-time head coach in Oakland, how did it help you to have sounding boards around you with experience on your coaching staff, and how does that influence what you can do alongside that?
Yeah, look, I think at any level that you're at, having experienced people that, I think sometimes we can learn through other people's trials and tribulations instead of having to go through them, ourselves. I think that's a better way to learn. So I think anything that that I can do to help him just from my own personal experience and what I went through as a first-time head coach, a second-time head coach. The challenges are there on a daily basis as a head coach. And so being able to deal with those as they come along, every day you wake up, you're coming into the office and that, there's going to be things that you're going to have to deal with. And then it's just really about how do you react to those things.